Fighting types are great wall breakers in Generation 3 OU, well equipped to handle defensive teams. The most popular fighting types in the game are Heracross and Breloom. These are the only two OU ranked fighting type Pokemon in Gen 3, and both are quite distinct and fit on different kinds of teams. Another fighting type that is commonly used in competitive play is Machamp. Even though this Pokemon is ranked in UUBL, it's seen a decent amount in high level play thanks to its ability Huge Power, giving it a distinct advantage over Heracross and Breloom. While these three fighting types are very distinct, each with their own unique advantages, there are two more fighting types that are not distinct from each other and are actually very similar, and those are Machamp and Hariyama. Both Machamp and Hariyama have a mono fighting typing, they both have the ability Guts, and they have similar moveset options. Hariyama is by far the more popular choice between these two, thanks to its access to the much coveted move Knockoff, a move that disables the effect of an enemy's item. This is a very rare moveset option in Gen 3 OU, and it is a blessing to have access to it. But I think that the alternative, similar mono fighting type, Machamp, is actually a little bit underrated and has subtle advantages that you might not expect. Machamp and Hariyama have some slight differences to their stat distribution, and in some areas Machamp is a bit better. Machamp has a really high base attack stat of 130, slightly higher than Hariyama's 120. Machamp also has slightly better defenses, with 20 higher defense and 25 higher special defense. And Machamp also has the tiniest little bit more speed, with 5 higher speed than Hariyama. At a glance you might just assume that Hariyama is the bulkier Pokemon with its massive 144 base HP stat, but that slight boost to physical defense on Machamp actually does make it a bit sturdier than Hariyama is against physical attackers. Even with a lower HP stat, Machamp ends up taking less damage against Tyranitar, who is the most important Pokemon to be able to switch in against as a fighting type. Having higher base attack and defense also makes you quite a bit better at using the move Bulk Up, which boosts attack and defense. Hariyama does not commonly use Bulk Up, it usually uses Knock Off and 3 attacks or some kind of utility like Whirlwind, but Machamp can make great use of Bulk Up. With certain EV spreads you can even be okay against an incoming Salamence, which you can't really say for Hariyama. With a higher physical defense stat and Bulk Up to boost it further, you can take the incoming Hidden Power Flying and bring Salamence pretty low with Rock Slide. If they're chipped a bit already, this can be a plan to eliminate Salamence, which can be great for a fighter spam type of team. Salamence is one of the toughest matchups for teams built around fighting types, so having some sort of way to lure it in and force damage against it like this can be useful. Having 10 higher points in base attack may not sound like much, but with an adamant nature and all the bonus stats you can get, Machamp actually ends up hitting quite a bit harder than Hariyama does, especially against incoming physical walls like Skarmory, Swampert, and Melodic. And Machamp can be a bit awkward to handle for these Pokemon. Skarmory sometimes runs Drill Peck as an answer to fighting types, which is particularly effective against Breloom and Heracross, who are both ×4 weak to flying type. But Machamp is only ×2 weak to flying, and with a bulk up defense boost as well, you're not going to really answer it with Drill Peck. The only choice for a Skarmory coming in against Machamp is to take a huge +1 cross chop and roar it out, which isn't great. 5 more points in base speed also probably doesn't sound very significant, but this actually lets Machamp hit important speed benchmarks that Hariyama has a harder time doing. Hariyama really needs to spend its EVs on its defenses. Hariyama has high base HP and low defense and special defense. So without investment in the defenses, it's not going to be very bulky and it's not going to work very well. This leaves almost no room to invest in speed or attack. But Machamp has more well-rounded defenses and also has an easier time hitting the important 199 speed benchmark, which outruns Melodic and also outruns Skarmory and most Claydol sets. While Hariyama can be pretty threatening in its own right, especially when it has the Guts boost, the fact that it's slower than so many common defensive Pokemon is a big deal. Claydol can outrun Hariyama and hit them with a Psychic, Skarmory can outrun and hit with Drill Peck, and Melodic can outrun Hariyama and hit them with Surf if they're low enough to fall to that. But Machamp does a better job of hitting the speed benchmark to outrun all of these Pokemon, is better at using Bulk Up because of its base stats and the fact that it can more easily invest in attack EVs. And none of these Pokemon love taking hits from Machamp. Machamp can use Hidden Power Bug or Hidden Power Ghost to be able to hit Claydol super effectively. And Cross Chop is extremely threatening to anything neutral to it. Another cool option Machamp has up its sleeve that Hariyama doesn't is Encore. Much like Knockoff, this is an extremely rare utility move that not many Pokemon get in Gen 3, and Machamp is actually the only fighting type in the game that can use Encore. Encore forces the target to repeat the last move they used for 3 to 6 turns, and this is actually a pretty nice move to have on a wall-breaking Pokemon like this, especially one that is capable of outrunning important defensive Pokemon. By forcing defensive enemies to repeat moves such as recover or protect, you make them completely vulnerable and also give yourself free turns to set up bulk up. You can also use Encore to disable various offensive Pokemon, like a Zapdos using Substitute or a Heracross using Swords Dance. This also makes Machamp pretty nice against Curse Snorlax. It's already a fighting type that hits it super effectively, but sometimes Snorlax can snowball to the point where even super effective hits are barely hurting it thanks to all the defensive boosts. Cross Chop is also not the most reliable attack in the world, with only 8 PP and a high chance to miss. But with Encore, you can force them to repeatedly curse, and therefore they're unable to rest or attack you. And even if you don't like running Cross Chop, which is an inconsistent move with only 80 accuracy, Machamp has a cool fighting type attack that Hariyama does not have access to, and that is Low Kick. This is a move that deals damage based on the enemy's weight, and luckily most of the targets you want to hit with fighting type moves have a high weight, like Snorlax and Tyranitar. The player Calavite has experimented with an Encore Machamp set on this team. This is a spikeless offense where a widely threatening Pokemon like Machamp fits in quite well. This team is using a Choice Band Metagross lead, which can explode against an incoming Skarmory as a way to eliminate it. Machamp is a good fit here, not only helping you out against Tyranitar and even Snorlax, but also giving you a bit of anti-stall technology with Encore, punishing anything that clicks Recover or Curse or Calm Mind, and giving you free turns to start posing a threat, and offense is all about gaining free turns. The player Darth Tyros has also made effective use of Machamp on a spikeless offense team. In this tournament game against Gold Mason, Machamp successfully lured in a Gyarados and brought it quite low with Rock Slide. Gyarados does a similar thing to Salamence, checking fighting types with Intimidate and fighting resistance. So Machamp luring this in and dealing significant damage with Rock Slide opened things up for Darth Tyros and his offensive game plan. Spikeless offense teams are not the most popular or consistent strategy in Gen 3 OU, but fighting types fit well on them for their ability to threaten a lot of the common defensive cores in the game. And Machamp is one of the better ones at enabling this kind of team. Both Darth Tyros and Calavite are strong up-and-coming players who have been invited to my invitational Gen 3 OU tournament, the Jimvitational. They will be competing in the play-ins event, attempting to earn a spot in the main event. If you want to see these two rising stars in action, along with many others, stay tuned to the Revival Tournaments channel, where we'll be uploading tournament coverage as soon as the event begins, which will be on May 19th. Machamp and Hariyama definitely have an interesting rivalry in Gen 3, and while they look so similar on the surface, and in many ways they are, subtle differences feel very amplified in a metagame like this that is old and has been very optimized. The slight differences in these two Pokemon's stats completely change their identities, and Machamp can be a much more aggressively leaning Pokemon since it doesn't need to invest EVs in defense like Hariyama does, freeing up its ability to invest in speed and attack. But Hariyama is a fit on bulkier teams thanks to its access to Knockoff and Whirlwind. I really like Machamp in Gen 3 OU. I think that in Generation 4, when it got No Guard and Dynamic Punch, it became a less interesting Pokemon to me. I prefer the way it plays and the way it is used in Gen 3, and I think there's a bit more to explore with Machamp. Not many people have experimented with the Encore option, which I think has a lot of potential because that is a fantastic move that can enable a lot of cool stuff. What do you think of Machamp, and what would you like me to talk about next? Let me know down below in the comments, and thank you for watching.